Salento is a super cool little town about 15 miles north of Armenia. And it used to be kind of off the hidden path. Not a lot of people knew about it, but that's not true anymore. It's one of the most visited places in all of Quindío. It's in the Corcoro Valley. And here you can see the wax palms upwards to 200 feet. Just an amazing thing to look at. And it draws visitors from all over. The town itself is about 10,000 people, pretty small, really, in terms of Colombian standards, but it just hums with energy thanks to all the tourists that come there all throughout the year. The valley, the Corker Valley itself, sits between 4,200 and 7,800 feet. And as you can imagine, with this difference in elevation, there's all sorts of cool things that come out of that. Thermal levels are unique to this area. The valley floor is warm, but once you start hiking up, you need a jacket. It can get downright cold. The views are just amazing. They're like some of the views I get when I visit the Rockies back in Montana. It's just really a place that if you come to Colombia, you need to come see. It's a major draw for local and international visitors. The Copra Valley is a haven for nature enthusiasts and coffee connoisseurs alike. There are several farms that provide guided tours in both Spanish and English, and you can get a first-hand look at the traditional ways of planting, harvesting, processing, and brewing sustainable specialty coffee. There's trails you can walk through, and it's just, I just can't say enough how cool it is, this little area. And it's in this setting that I meet Sandra. My name is Matt Hover, and this is Walkabout. The turnoff to Salento is just past the turnoff to Circassia, but not yet to the turnoff for Finlandia on the way north out of Armenia towards Ferreta. Both Circassia and Finlandia are cool little towns. Maybe someday we'll talk about them. But today, we're headed to Salento. I take the exit into the small little 2-lane road that winds down the side of the mountain. Lots of switchbacks and hairpin turns. Passing is unadvisable due to the nature of the road, and top speed is about 25 miles an hour. Once on the valley floor, we cross a little bridge that goes over the Quindío River, and then more switchbacks and hairpin turns as we go up the other side of the mountain to the town of Salento, which is situated at just over 6,000 feet above sea level. I find where Sandra is staying, and after a brief introduction, she suggests that we walk down into a little cafe called Brunch. It's a favorite for the backpackers that come through here and bicyclists. Brunch is a 2-story cafe with an entire wall covered with the names of travelers who wandered in for something to drink or eat. Brunch is just past the fire station on the main road leading into Salento. So if you take the bus, it's going to drop you off, and then when you start walking into the main part of town up to the square, you walk right by it on your left. And same thing if you drive. If you drive there and head up to the city square, you'll drive right by it. So maybe stop in and check it out. It has a vibe of something you might see in Vail or Breckenridge, Colorado. It's just kind of a hipster place. We go to the second floor and sit in comfortable chairs and start chatting. I do have to say at this point that it's kind of noisy. There's lots going on the street and inside the cafe. So keep that in mind as you listen to this conversation with Sandra. It's not going to be perfect audio. It's going to be a little messy, because the world's a messy.
My name is Sandra. In Spanish, I'm from the States, and I go to 12 or 13 states.
Where were you born?
I was born in New Mexico, but I lived in mostly on the East Coast, but also in the Midwest.
Where in Mexico? New Mexico.
Albuquerque.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I have an uncle that lives in Tupac.
I have no memories of Mexico. New Mexico, I lived like on the sports.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So then you went to
after that? Your family picked up and moved to?
Well, we moved a lot when I was growing up. I think I don't even know how many schools I went to. And then when I left home, I just kept traveling or kept moving because I didn't know anything. And it wasn't until I was 51 when I started studying Spanish after 2 years of sleeping through Spanish class in high school.
But you're an English teacher.
Well, I became an English teacher by accident when I started learning Spanish because I was volunteering in an English class for Mexican women. And I kept going to the class to listen to Spanish, and I was offered a job teaching English with no experience. And for the first 4 years, I taught undocumented workers from Mexico and Central America. When I was 57, I went back to grad school. And that's the first time I actually spent any time. I went to Guatemala to teach at a Spanish school. And then I just started traveling and took up my master's.
Where'd you go to grad school?
St. Cloud State University.
Really?
St. Cloud, Minnesota.
I've been there
Wow.
several times. Yeah.
That's not very many people.
On my way up to Bemidji.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and St. Cloud State has an excellent hockey team.
Okay, I didn't know that. Makes sense. There's a lot of snow there.
At the collegiate level. So then you're done with your English, you're done with grad school.
Yeah.
And then where do you go?
Well, that's when I started. I just left the States
Okay.
and I went to Ecuador, then I went back to Guatemala, went to Senegal, Rwanda, Tunisia.
Rwanda, how was that?
Intense. It's a very quiet country. It's just that it's very rooting because there's just so much fallout from the genocide. But no, I never felt that I had to be on my
Unsafe.
Yeah, the town I lived in, I was in a university town, about 80,000. I would see another Mzungu or white person once a week or so. So the biggest issue was people staring at me, but I never felt unsafe.
Okay. Very good. So then why bounced around Latin America and South America?
Just Ecuador, between Guatemala and Africa. And then I got a job in Massachusetts. I thought I'd try my hand at teaching again in the States. So first of all, I got a job in Virginia Tech. And I was in Virginia for 5 years. And then my jobs, teaching English and Spanish. And the funding dried up for my job. So I got a job in Massachusetts, teaching, interestingly enough, almost all Brazilians, because the town I was living in is one of the biggest groups of Brazilians in the world.
So do you know Portuguese then?
No, you don't have to know other languages. So after being in Massachusetts for a few months, I just decided I was done with the United States. So I went to Haiti, worked in Haiti, and I was going to go back there, but that was a political situation. So I asked my daughter, where would you go if you could go anywhere? She said, Colombia. So I bought a ticket.
And where did you go?
Colombia.
Yeah, where did you go?
I started at a Buddhist meditation retreat in Carmen de Vidro in Ethiopia. And the meditation teacher gave me, or the yoga teacher gave me a list of places to visit. So I went to Guatemala, San Rafael, San Carlos, which nobody knows. And I spent time I went up to the coast and then went back and spent some time in Guatemala. And I wanted to go somewhere else. And I spent a week at a Catholic monastery outside of Guatemala. I spent a week up in the mountains of Barbosa. And everybody kept saying, go to Salento, go to Salento. Salento's so great. And I don't want to go to Salento because there's too many tourists in Salento, right? So finally, okay, I'll go to Salento. I got here exactly 1 week before the toque de queda, the lockdown for the pandemic.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was perfect because I had to figure out somewhere to go, and I knew I didn't want to go back to the States. And I thought of the places I'd been in Colombia. And I didn't really want to go back anywhere, so I asked my Airbnb host if I could stay there, and he checked with the mayor's office, and they said yes. So I'm still living in the same cabana I stayed in the first night I came to Salento.
Wow!
And I like to say I got rid of all the tourists in a week. It was very peaceful here. I was here for 13 months, and
so then you decided to stay.
Mhm.
So walk us through that process of how you came to the conclusion, okay, I'm going to jump in with both feet, and then, well, I need to get some sort of permanent residency. So what did that look like?
Well, I guess first of all, I don't consider it jumping in with both feet for me because I'm alone, I'm single. I travel really lightly, so it was a matter of putting my both feet down here, but not with any idea that it was necessarily permanent.
Okay.
But yeah, I applied for a visa.
You want us, or you want to have a step by step on how you did that?
I used an organization. They handled everything until they were fine until we got to the insurance.
So what we did, when I brought my wife to States to get her citizenship and to get her eventually a passport, hired an attorney.
Mhm.
He did great. And so that's kind of my expectation when I came here, to find somebody that kind of knew what they were doing. And that was not the case.
So I think it really depends on who you get, right?
Yeah. So I'm not gonna say who it was, but it was a disappointment for sure.
Yeah.
And I feel like I got fleeced a little bit.
Yeah. I think you have to be really, really, really careful and really use resources that other people have shut down. So I know who I'll use next time, or I have to review it here, and I know one or two people, and it's not any question I consider anybody else because I don't want to go through one of those stories that I've heard too many times.
I didn't have, for me personally, there was no contacts in there. I had my wife and her family,
Right.
but nobody had any experience with the legal system, trying to get a visa, trying to jump through those hoops.
So you weren't in the Facebook groups at them?
No, I didn't know about it.
Got it.
Yeah. I had no idea about expats of Cadillo and
makes a huge
expats of
difference.
Colombia.
Exactly. Yeah.
In fact, we met our first Americans quite by accident. Where we live in Armenia is in the south, and so there's not a lot of expats or English people.
Are you in the south of Armenia or in the south of Armenia toward Guatemala?
We're in the south of Armenia.
Okay.
So the neighborhood is Camino del Puerto is the name of the neighborhood.
Well,
It's just going to Pueblo Tapal.
I've never been to Pueblo Tapal. Yeah. I go to Armenia just to get stuff done. And then
you come back. I was going to ask you about driving on that road.
I don't drive.
Okay.
One of my greatest joys of leaving the United States was giving my car to a good friend and never having to drive again. I'm not interested. And the buses, the buses leave every 20 minutes from Salento to Armenia.
So you jump on a bus, go to the terminal, and then take another bus?
No, you don't go there. You learn, all the stuff. So I can get off to go to Laureles. I can get off at Bolivar to go to the center near Fundadores. And then I go to one of those places. If I have to go somewhere else, I just grab a taxi. So I know where I'm going. I know, where I need to go in Armenia. Yeah, I really, really, really don't like cities. I mean, every time I come back from Armenia, I have to kind of recover a little bit.
How long have you been living in Salento?
3 years.
3 years.
I was here for 13 months. I left, and then I've now been back for 2 years.
Okay. Yeah. And how was your Spanish before?
It was pretty good. Because I'm an English teacher, because I feel that if I'm going to teach a language, it's important for me to model being a language student. I love languages. I study Spanish and French every day. But I have to say Colombian Spanish is really tough. And it's mostly what you may have heard called los colombianismos. When you met my sister, when she says something, I half the time don't know what she's saying. And I can hear her. I get all the words, but I'll say, Can you say that differently? Because I didn't understand. She'll say it differently, and I still don't understand because she's using so many colloquialisms.
And then how did you start connecting with people once you were here?
In Salento,
Uh-huh.
it was really great because the family has been a real support for me. Mariela, the one you met, and her son Leandro. And even during the pandemic, a lot of people were coming and going. I'll show you how our house had to go back. They're very, very well connected. And Mariela is very, very, very well respected in the town. And then it was just a matter of, just taking my time and talking to people. And it's a little embarrassing for me because I can't tell you the number of times someone says, "Hola, Sandra, ¿cómo está?" And I'm like, and I'm, 74 and I have white hair and I'm a Mona, as we say. We don't say gringa here, we say Mona. And so I know I'm a lot more obvious to people than they are to me, but it's a little bit embarrassing, And so, but I really, talk with a lot of people.
Would you recommend Candio?
I mean, I think it depends on what you want. I think it's important for people to recognize, as I'm sure you do, that Armenia and Perea are just exploding. I mean, there's so many people moving here. They're not expats. They're mostly Rolos from Bogota, is my understanding, and a lot of Venezuelans. And I think the towns are changing very, very, very rapidly. And I find the congestion and just the sense of kind of, overwhelmness is a lot more than it was when I came here 4 years ago. So I think what bothers me, I think if people were to ask the right questions about whether to come here, but the problem is people go, Armenia's great. Tell me why you're saying that. Pareda's great. Why? So I think there's a lot of kind of, I don't say stupidity, but people don't think, where should I live? How much does it cost to live in Colombia? So I think I think the advice that I see a lot and hear a lot, but I think I totally agree with is don't make any decisions until you
come here
and explore some different places. If I weren't sure whether if I were wanting to live in the city, I would spend time in Manizales, I would spend time in Pereira, I would spend time in Armenia, and I wouldn't make any decisions.
I like small town life too. I grew up in rural Montana, the population of nothing.
Yeah.
Right? So, Salento's like 10,000, 7,000. And it just seems bigger than it.
And this tremendous influx of tourism. So it's not a representative town.
So tell us about Salento. What is the best place? Like, this place is pretty cool. With the writing on the walls and a lot of expats come in here or backpackers.
No, not expats, backpackers. I mean, the thing about Salento is it's very separated. Like, if you never see anybody from Salento in here unless they're making deliveries. The only Colombians who come in here pretty much are bikers. There's a lot of people ride their bikes here. But I think when you have a tourist town, so many people come here, and if they say, that if you've heard this, I'm going to do Colombia, I'm going to do Salento. It's like, how do you do a town? How do you do a country? It's like, and I did Salento, and I did Medellin, and they come here like it's a movie set. I went to Cocora, I went to a coffee farm, I walked to the miradors. They don't know there are two miradors usually. And then it was boring because there's nothing else to do. And they don't seem to notice that anybody lives here. It's like, we can say hello to people and they just look. A friend of mine said you can tell the backpackers because they walk down the street like this and they never say hello. And then I think, for the locals, it gets really tiring. Like, my daughter was here almost 2 years ago, and we went to a couple of restaurants that I haven't been to on my own, and they treated us like this, They were polite. But then I happened to go to both of them after she left, and they're like, "Oh, you're back. You live here." And it was a completely different energy, and it kind of that the two things feed on each other.
Now tell us about you're working now,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a online theater
Right.
school.
Right. well, online English classes. Yeah.
Are they in the States or here?
Most of my students have been Colombian. Um, Partly because I was marketing to Colombians, and partly I think just because I was here, and so it made sense to work with them. So I have a very specific market. I work with advanced speakers on speaking skills. So I went through writing, or reading, and so when I first meet with a student, it's all online. I make sure that they understand I'm looking for advanced students, and I make sure that they're an advanced student. And so, yeah, go ahead.
So it's your own project. It's not. I'm not working for
No.
English or Us.
No.
It's your own business that you built up.
Right. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I call it pronunciation, speaking skills, and cultural, what is it, confident intercultural communication. So a lot of what we talk about is how you communicate, like the rudeness. And one of my favorite stories I tell Colombian students, and they love it, is, in the United States, we're like this, you get to the point, and I tell them a story about a student I had from Argentina who had asked me to look at a letter. She wanted to become an intern for Professor Duke in North Carolina. And her letter was, it's so nice to meet you, and blah, 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 blah. And at the end, let's get a coffee. I said, you can't do that. You have to do this and this and this. And she got the position. And she came in a couple of weeks later, and she said, the professor's really angry with me. I said, well, how do you know? She said, well, the car broke down, and and we went out and it wasn't working, Latino, and so, I had to drive my husband to school, and they were, and she's given a lot of detail. And she said, I told the professor this, and he answered in 2 words. Well, what were the 2 words? No problem. Well, to her, that meant that he was really angry. And so we talked a lot about that. Like I'll say to my students, don't say, of course. Do you like studying English? Of course. No, because that means, what a stupid question. And they don't realize that. We just talk about, if a student goes on and on and on, what's your point? And then they'll say, well, I like to decorate my language. Yeah, I said, I know, but that's not what we're looking for. So it's really fun. And we do a lot of, exploring interculturally, which I enjoy a lot. And unfortunately for them, with advanced speakers, at least 50%, if not a lot more, is correcting all the mistakes that they learned, because they were studying, most of them studying English in Colombia from Colombian teachers who had learned mistakes. Right. And so, I had a student he said, I'm going to walk to the corner. And I said, it's not walk, it's walk. What? I said, yeah, it's walk. You don't pronounce the L. And then I tried to go on, and he couldn't move. He was paralyzed. And I said, I could see smoke coming out of your head. It was just like, how can this be? So it's just kind of playing with all those, all those things that we stumble over.
Yeah, it takes me so long to get like a phrase down or to get a concept down. And then when I try it out at the coffee shop, or like talking to the taxi guy or the bus or whatever, it's like, what are you saying? And she has to bail me out. And she says exactly what I say.
Well, I was going to say there's something to be aware of, and I tell my students this. It's true for us, and especially us, because we're very mono, right? We're very blonde. People look at us, we're older, and we're very blonde, and they go, I don't understand. And it happens on the other side. Somebody who looks very Latino goes to the United States and starts speaking perfectly good English. I don't understand them. It's a whole concept in language acquisition. My favorite was I got in a taxi in Armenia, and they said, me gustaría ir a Dollar City. Quiero ir a Dollar City. No entiendo. Puedo ir a Dollar City. Dollar City. I had to change the little accent for him to get me. And I think if I had looked more Latino, they would have been able to decode that, right? Yeah. but it still happens a lot. I've had to say to people sometimes, I do speak Spanish. I'm speaking Spanish to you right now, and you are going to understand me. Like, it's sometimes people just
The wall.
it's called the affective filter. It's like a non-cognitive wall that goes up that prevents you from understanding. There was a study that was done, very interesting, very sad. They took two young women. One was a white, very European. The other was Chinese, of Chinese origin. They used the same voice, and they asked people who was easier to understand. The white woman was easier to understand. That's all perception. There's nothing there cognitively that's different.
Yeah.
So I love that. I love exploring that.
But also, the pronunciation is of the letters are absolutely different sometimes. Like, for example, the T,
Yeah.
UT. I love softer than our T. So when you are talking,
Yes.
so it's a huge difference.
It's a huge
And
difference.
when I was in the States, most of the time, for example, when I had to go to the doctor, I really wanted Matt to come with me because more or less he was going to translate from the English to better English.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because it probably wasn't even better English. It was just that it was English that they were used to. Because people say the accent, where is the accent? The accent's with the listener. It's not with the speaker. But I agree. I mean, we get caught up in that.
If you want to see what brunch looks like, you can head on over to my Instagram page. That's walkabout751 at on Instagram. If you want to drop me a note, you can do that too. That's walkabout751@gmail.com. And I hope to see you next time on Walkabout.